Great. Welcome to our first live panel discussion for the day, how PropTech aids property investment. So this is what the panel will be looking into today, and also how the property industry can overcome the obstacles by using PropTech solutions, and also how it can help them generate new leads and also make easy decisions. Before we get into the discussion, I would like to quickly introduce you the panel for today. We have with us Mr. Fadi Nuvalati, the CEO of Kaizen Asset Management Services. Also joining the panel is Mr. Mubarak Hussain, the Director of IT Bloom Holdings. And we also have with us Mr. Sergio Negri, the Head of Business Technology, Dubai Holding Real Estate. Now, the session will be moderated by Ms. Lynette Abad, who is the Director, Research and Data of Property Finder Group. So audience, just do note that the Q&A will be held in the last 10 minutes of the discussion. However, we do encourage you to post in your question during the course of the discussion. And of course, we do have a networking lounge outside where you can take this discussion out there post the session. So over to you, Ms. Lynette.
Thank you, Megha, very much for that very kind introduction of all of us. Today, our goal is to make this session as informative as possible for all of you. So let me start with the first question. And this question is going to go out to all three panel members. And I'll start with Fadi. So the first one is, obviously, technology recently in the past few years has made a significant impact in the property management sector, especially with end-to-end solutions. Tell me a little bit about this impact and how you saw it within your business.
Thank you, Lynette, and thank you everyone for being here today. I think we're seeing significant adoption of PropTech, especially in 2020. Over the last 5 years, the industry was sort of adopting PropTech. It was more of a trend among a lot of property management companies and asset management companies. Today, it has moved from being a trend to really becoming a necessity, a business necessity. I can tell you from our experience, at the beginning, as soon as the lockdown hit us, we were immediately prepared because we were technologically advanced. Our customers were able to transact, engage, lease properties, manage their units, manage their transactions digitally. And so our service providers and ourselves as asset managers were able as well to remotely manage and monitor the performance of the properties. And I can say, if this pandemic has hit us, a year ago or a couple of years ago, we wouldn't have been as an organization well equipped to deal with it. Actually, I hope this answers your question. Lynette.
Yeah, I understand my video is frozen, so I'm going to keep on talking, and then in the interim, try to fix my video. Now, Sergio, okay, so we brought in COVID immediately into the discussion. So I want to ask you, Sergio, tell us a little bit what happened during the COVID situation and your solutions that you have at Dubai Holdings.
Okay, so our backbone is Salesforce and Yardi, so we didn't change that as you can imagine. What we did were several actions. First of all, we embedded digital signature into Salesforce, so now we can issue for some of the processes we can do those things digitally, which of course requires less round trip time and less handling of papers. But in general, we implemented solutions to avoid manual contacts of forms for employees, invoices. We enhanced the digital payment capabilities on the platform MyDP, which is the platform that we use to interact with the customers. So there are countless solutions to actually limit the customers to visit our centers, applying title for title deeds online, viewing drawings online, booking key handovers, orientation appointments, etc., etc. So the list is very long. So of course, as you can imagine, we had a backlog of activities that we were planning to carry out this year, but then the COVID came. And so we reshuffled everything, and we as business, hey, how can we help actually to minimize this impact? And we started from there. It was very, very interesting to be part of that.
Now, you said reshuffle because we also had the same situation at Property Finder when the crisis hit. I mean, we really had to innovate and we had to be extremely agile. What was the top priority for you during the crisis? when it came to the technology?
So basically, it was really minimizing the visit to our customer center. So we from IT, of course, for us it's extremely easy to from one day to another to flip on the Teams and start doing things and managing things from our homes. But it's not so for our colleagues that have to handle physical papers, and also for the colleagues who have to interact with the customers. For all those employees, it was a challenge. So starting from day one, we try to minimize the number of visits. So that's why we enable those solutions to minimize those visits.
That's very interesting. Now, Mubarak, tell us your story during COVID and your technology.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Hi Lynette, and thanks everyone for joining, and panelists here. Nice to meet you all. And so COVID, this is an interesting time. I've always been a believer, generally, in sort of digitizing environments anyway, and sort of as a evangelist, promoting digital technologies, cloud-based technologies, elastic environments, environments that have built-in business continuity. That's why a lot of our platforms we had developed beforehand, S/4HANA on cloud, SAP, real estate solutions, Office 365 emails, team collaboration. We'd migrated a lot of our technology and platforms online, for ourselves, for our customers, for our end users, because maybe our reasoning was slightly different. I mean, we weren't thinking pandemic, but we were thinking business continuity. We were thinking cost saving. We were thinking elasticity. We were thinking reaching the end customer, making life easier for our internal stakeholders. So we'd actually been developing solutions, even IoT. We were looking at solutions in terms of smart building solutions for reasons other than the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit, and obviously our first priority: keep people safe, keep the business functioning. The top call is the business has to continue, the people have to be able to work, and they have to be safe, and customers and people interactions have to be done in a safe way. So we were I believe very well equipped. We flipped over relatively seamlessly, without much difficulty. I know now, months into this pandemic, it's we're here having virtual sessions, and it's all kind of feeling a bit like the new normal, and it's okay. But in the early days, yes, it was a big transition. Not so much for IT. We had been using these solutions beforehand. We were quite comfortable with Teams and collaborations and video conferencing, but there was a big learning curve, I think, for a lot of people as they got familiar with the digital platforms, as they they had some training to get more familiar with it, how to work with it. But their core solutions continued, and they continued to work, and they served us well. I suppose the fortunate thing is, the roadmap had been set long before. But since then, there is now technology is seen as the sort of a very key area in terms of how it can help businesses reach customers, how you can continue to operate businesses, even continue to grow in these challenging times, and how we're going to be in this environment for a few months. So all these digital solutions are nice, as our panelists Fadi and Sergio have mentioned some things, but all these even nice to have solutions like augmented reality, or VR tours, or as I mentioned, AI, big data analytics. All these sort of nice to have are now becoming a lot more compulsory, because the companies who have prospered and have continued with their businesses have been the digitally enabled companies. The companies who I believe have suffered a lot, disproportionately so, have been the ones who have been too reliant on physical processes and physical premises, and they've been based on restrictions. The people haven't been able to visit premises, haven't been able to go to physical stores, and they've disproportionately been affected by this pandemic. So I think going forward as well, there will be definitely a much stronger drive towards digitizing areas of the business that maybe haven't kept up with the pace in terms of whether internally within their companies, or even against their peers, or benchmarked against the industry in terms of their peer companies who have actually digitized and now are reaping the benefits for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many times during crisis, I said you either innovate or die. And we clearly saw it with so many different companies in so many different industries. I mean, even ourselves at Property Finder, we had to create tools that have never been created before in the industry. For example, we created something called live viewings, and we were using YouTube technology, our own internal technology. We did it within 8 days. The team was working 24/7, and this allowed real estate agents to tour property in real time while a consumer is sitting at their home and asking them questions. And this really helped our business because people were putting offerings on these properties through live viewings. Also, you mentioned big data, and obviously this is my background. We also started webinars, and it was extremely data focused. I would say 3/4 of the webinar was all about data, and that was to help our clients during this pandemic. What were the trends? What were people shifting to? What kind of units should you be focusing on based on the demand trends? And this really, really significantly helped our company. Now, Mubarak, let me ask you a question. What are some of the pain points that you found during the crisis with the technology?
Yeah, so the pain points, you're talking to an IT person. So as an IT guy, we were quite comfortable with the shift to digital. You know, we're living that world way anyway. We're working with global teams. You know, we are the ones sort of looking at solutions, and we are implementing them in our buildings, like IoT, you know, machine learning, AI solutions. We're quite comfortable. We've been doing this for the last 20 years, working with virtual global teams. It's not anything new to someone like myself, but it is a big change for other people. You know, we're talking about you suddenly now, you know, you can't meet people physically. You've got to collaborate virtually. You've got to share documents. You've got to communicate with clients. And it was a pain point was the initial learning curve. Obviously, you have the physical. You know, we have multiple lines of business. So the very first physical thing was always going to be a challenge in terms of getting people up and running. And but the sort of learning curve to adapt, the pace of change, like I say, we're talking to people like myself who've been in the industry over 20 years, and we came from the mainframe days and the days of the dawn of the internet, and we've seen this massive rapid progression and Moore's law and the doubling of IT compute power every couple of years. And so but this is a big disruption to people who are not from technology background, and property and construction generally. Buildings have been built the same way for hundreds of years. A few changes in tools. Now suddenly you're putting this massive surge of change, and it's quite unsettling. You know, you've got to be. There's always this change management of people being afraid of new change, and then overcoming that curve and it normalizing. And it's amazing. I think the people today are so different from the beginning of the year. Nobody envisaged this pandemic happening. Nobody thought that it would be going online and all digital by the end of the year. Luckily, a place like the UAE did have a vision to go paperless, go online, go digital. But there's a lot of practices, signing of signatures, documents. There's a lot of physical sort of, and especially with property, viewing property. There's a lot of physical interaction in this world. So yes, shifting to that digital mindset, that disruption, that change, they've been the biggest challenges. And obviously, you had other things like logistical challenges. Suddenly, equipment or suppliers were being affected because the movement of goods was being affected. But this is why it was so important, like I say, to put the platforms in beforehand. If we'd had too much reliance on physical infrastructure, physical service, physical movement of goods, movement of people, we would have really suffered. And I mentioned IoT. That's another perfect example. The whole point was to try and become energy efficient, tried to save, remove the need for repeated visits to buildings from our facilities management or maintenance teams. So the whole idea was to save energy, become, remove unnecessary costs, reduce the movement of people. But those same concepts, those same ideas also benefited us in a pandemic situation as well. because all those same things apply to a pandemic. You want to reduce the movement of people. You still want to save on energy and efficiency and cost cutting. It is an important thing, and cost control is an important thing. And you want deep insights and analytics and being able to predict when something will happen, rather than having to go and visit a place 10 times a day. So I think the ideas that you have in terms of digitization, and especially PropTech now has taken a much more important role as well, and it will, I believe, will continue to do so. They will serve you whatever the situation that does come for, because you can't prepare for a pandemic. Nobody could have prepared at the beginning of the year that at this time of the year this would be happening. It caught everybody really off guard, and I think having some resilience, having those kind of solutions in place that were highly resilient rather than legacy systems, legacy sort of practices, served companies that did it very well.
Thank you, Mubarak. Just really quick, guys. Sorry, I realize my video is not working, but at least you can hear me, and I don't want to mess with my laptop too much in case of dropping off. And also, everyone out there, please send your questions. We're very curious to hear your thoughts on what everyone on the panel is saying. Now, Fadi, let me ask you. Now, you said basically before the crisis started that you had your systems in place, so you guys were ready. Now, what challenges did you face?
To be honest, as I listened to Sergio talking about reshuffling priorities, and then also with Mubarak, very interesting input indeed. We were, I would say, lucky. About at the end of 2018, we actually worked on a project internally called Project Remote, and it was more of research and development. The purpose of that project was for us to be able to manage properties remotely and to achieve both managing the resident experience remotely, and that includes engagement and transactions. And then the second part was more of performance, property performance, because as a service company, we're still responsible for performance regardless of pandemics, for example. And in November of 2019, we concluded the Project Remote. We had implemented it in 3 pilot projects, and we were able to completely manage projects remotely for a period of 6 months. So when the pandemic hit, we were actually lucky because we immediately just implemented Project Remote across our projects. The main pain point we had, I would say, was with end users, with customers, with tenants. About 70% were happy, immediately adopted digital transactions, digital engagement. There was about 30% of customers that still preferred face-to-face. That still preferred to have the physical lease agreement, for example. You spoke about making changes, Lynette, immediately at the pandemic, during the pandemic at Property Finder. A couple of the main issues we had when the pandemic hit that we had to react upon immediately was, for instance, leasing, touching on property performance. We were able to lease 8 units during lockdown, during the first 2 weeks of lockdown, only because we were digitized and because we were able to have the entire end-to-end process being done digitally. The second part, the second challenge we had was with a lot of people staying at home and staying in the buildings, we expected a surge in utility bills. And as we know, utility bills consume about 30 to 50% of a building operating costs. So we immediately had to have more instant access to data in buildings and instant access to, for example, which floors were unoccupied on our platforms in order to control cooling and control lighting in a more efficient manner in those buildings, in order not to have a surge in utility bills caused by the pandemic. So I'd say the main pain points were we did not have proper availability of data, for example, or live data when it came to things like utility, and about 30% of the customers did not accept digital transactions. So these were the 2 main points that we had.
Well, I'm surprised to say that 30% did not accept online transactions because we were all in our home. We really couldn't do anything. And for the other pain point, obviously IoT is the solution, and hopefully the future where we're going to be going here in Dubai with new developments. Sergio, let me ask you a question. Where do you see the next steps of technology in property management?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this question more broadly in terms of real estate versus specifically property management. So for sure, the direction is going toward tokenization. So we see that the market is moving in this direction, basically to offer fractional ownership of a unit. So instead of investing in a single unit, you can invest, let's say, a third of a unit, and then you create your own portfolio. The legal framework is not ready yet in the region, but we are getting there. So I know that the government is working on this. And I mean, in other countries, this thing is already a reality, and we are not talking about some experiments. So the experiments were done last year, 2 years ago. Now we are talking about big figures. So we are talking about project in the several billions. Okay, I'm talking about billions of dollars. So it's no longer an experiment. It's really something that is picking up quickly, and so I think that this will also happen in the region. Now, how exactly? This is going to be interesting to see. Will there be a single platform for secondary trading? Will there be, which will be basically owned by the government, or maybe we'll see the several platforms owned by several companies, and what is going to happen with the primary placement. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see exactly how that will develop. But for sure, it's the future, at least when it comes to the investment. Now, when it comes to the property management per se, or the extract of value, then we are seeing some changes there also. So in order to boost the revenues that you can get from each unit, and this is also tied with tokenization. So if we could have a tokenization, and then those properties are managed not in a traditional way, but in for instance short rentals or similar products, then it might be very interesting, because we might offer some products that have a yield that is so high that it would break the barrier of this the resistance towards a new investment product, basically. So the need is there, because we know that the need is there. In other markets, the REITs are there, and they are very, very well welcomed. Here in the region, they didn't start very well, I can say, for several reasons. I'm not going to detail which ones, but there is an opportunity, I think, for the region to skip the REIT step and altogether, basically, and jump towards tokenization straight away. Okay, and this entails several advantages for the end users, among which a more liquid market as soon as the secondary marketplace is in place, and also it's way less cumbersome, and also the ticket price is lower. So definitely that is something that is happening will happen in the region as well as across the globe.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sergio. I know we're starting to see a few platforms come up with the fractional ownership. I know they're being governed by the DFSA, and it's a good opportunities for someone who just wants to, with a little bit of cash, get into a property. Fadi, so where do you see improvement?
I think at the moment, Lynette, there are a lot of platforms and solutions out there that solve particular problems in real estate, whether it's asset management or other parts. I think the future I'd like to see is a future that's more integrated within these platforms. What we see is a lot of platforms actually, are not accepting of the idea of integrating with different platforms because of the stage of where PropTech is as an industry. So it's normal to have things built in silos, but I would like to see them integrated as we move on. And I think the second thing is big data. I know it's your area of specialty, Lynette. I do believe there are, in property management in particular, there are Can you hear me? Sorry, 1 second. I lost my audio.
We can hear you now.
Okay.
You're on.
Apologies. Where did you lose me, Lynette? The data? Yeah, okay. So I was saying I do believe in that big data will drive the solutions for the inefficiencies we have in buildings. The UAE in general has very high operating costs in buildings, which end up being high service charges for property owners or lower yield for property owners. And I think only with big data and proper data analytics that we will be able to have better efficiencies and reduce operating costs in buildings.
I think Fadi, I think Lynette has just dropped off, so I'll ask the question then. carry on. It's very interesting.
Go ahead.
Let's take over this thing. So look, it's very interesting you're saying about analytics and stuff. How about other areas? Are you finding that there's actually a big push to a lot of solutions that maybe were just left in innovation centers? Are you finding that the stuff that we were, Sergio mentioned interesting things in terms of tokenization and blockchain. So there's lots of these sort of ideas in terms of AR, VR, that was sort of research ideas and, analytics, machine learning, AI. Are you finding now a bigger push or drive from your side to put this sort of stuff in?
Definitely, globally, there is a big push. But again, I think everyone is working in silos. But what I would like to see is I'd like to see the resident experience connected with IoT, for example. We're not there yet in terms of integrations whereby today we manually do it. We find out which floors are unoccupied in a property, and we instruct the maintenance company to go and change the temperature or the lighting structure in that floor, whether turning the lights off or installing sensors. We are not there yet in terms of connecting occupancy, with IoT in a property, so that the IoT would take the necessary action on the floor of turning the lights off or changing the temperature in the floor based on occupancy data that is feeding in from a leasing platform, for instance, of that building, that particular property.
Okay. So Lynette, back to you. We just sort of carried on in your absence. Back to you now.
Oh my goodness, talk about Murphy's Law. This is ridiculous. So sorry, everybody. Okay, I don't know where you guys left off, but I did have a question for Sergio. Now that you guys, Dubai Holding has merged with Miraz, what type of integrations are you planning?
So it's going to be very interesting because even though we are doing the same business, sometimes we are doing that even in the same platforms, sometimes we don't. And even when we are doing that on the same platforms, as you can imagine, the processes are not exactly the same. And for sure, each of the steps of the processes is different sometimes. Okay, you have, I don't know, drop down menu and you have different choices. Very basic example. So basically, what we did was we led this from IT. So what we did was that we went through all the processes and all the steps of each of the processes, both for build to sell and for land, because as you know, we also sell land. And both for Miraz and Dubai Properties. And then step by step, we went through each of the steps with the business, say, hey, these are the discrepancies between these processes and these steps. So what do you want us to do? Do we take it the DP way, the Miraz way, something in the middle, something new altogether? And so it was a very, very thorough exercise that we did, and it took us several months. And after that, now we have a clear understanding of exactly what we want to do. So now it's we just finished the effort estimation. And so it means that we now know what we need to do to exactly change things and when those things change, because as you can imagine, it's a whole chain of systems, right? From Salesforce to Yardi to the ERP and all the other corollary system around those. So we have to make a shift to all of those, and we cannot just move one. So this is what we are now planning, and the plan is almost complete and will be up and running. So as you can imagine, it's going to be, and it has been interesting planning that during the pandemic when we had to manage the additional things and the reshuffling of everything, and why we were launching the new project from the business side. Okay, I'm not talking about an IT project, but we just launched La Rosa 3 at Villanova, which was launched yesterday. So as you can imagine, we had to change something from the IT side and support the business also from the IT side. So a lot of things, one on top of the other, running in parallel. So, but so far so good. So we are going to be able to manage the situation.
Now that's going to be a very big job.
Yeah.
Mubarak, let me ask you a question. In other mature real estate markets, or maybe not even mature, what type of technologies have you seen in other markets that are not yet here in the UAE that you think that we can benefit from?
Okay, I actually believe personally that the UAE is actually very good in terms of technology. I don't think it's really far behind in terms of technology. It's accelerating in a very, very fast way. I mean, for example, the UAE. It's looking to be blockchain based society, paperless society. Sergio was mentioning tokenization. You could have digital IDs. It opens up lots and lots of opportunity for the market. I mentioned about IoT. We're looking at smart cities, in terms of developing smart cities in the future. And that could have drones. It can have smart waste management systems. It could have smart autonomous cars and vehicles. So in my view, I don't think it's particularly behind in any areas. I see there's a lot of interesting trends out there in terms of cities and how to develop. But I'm more I think especially in the region, it's really, I believe, quite a leader in these areas, and it really, there's a lot of government support, a lot of industry support for these solutions as we develop them. That's my personal view anyway.
Now, you just mentioned government. Is there anything that the government can continue to do to support the property management sector, to help it maybe implement new regulations, maybe help with some parts of the digitization?
So I think this is probably where you get the difference. Yeah. So you get certain sort of government stimulus packages, help packages, financial aid for the property industry, loans. So you have all this sort of that side of it, which I think is very helpful. And you have different countries doing different things to support the industry, maybe sort of, helping the staff or wages or, some sort of schemes that they have. And then you have the sort of regulatory aspects. And the very interesting thing is, it's making fantastic changes. Like recently, it's saying that many more people in Dubai can have the golden visa, for example. So it's actually a real requirement. If people are going to buy property here, they need to be able to feel comfortable that they can stay here for the next 5 or 10 years. So it's making positive changes in terms of what attracts investors, what helps them. In terms of the digitization, I think one of the most important things in terms of PropTech is the support of the technology startup ecosystem and industry. And it's going a long way in terms of changing some of its laws towards bankruptcy, some, maybe making it easier for corporate entities to be set up. All the pillars that you need in a digital ecosystem in terms of financial, in terms of, business parks, support areas. I think the UAE, and I did a lot of research on this, and I wrote a research sort of paper on this thing. It's one of the leaders in the UAE in terms of all the pillars that you need for a digital startup ecosystem. And I think, it continues to support that, continues to fund that. It would really, really help accelerate the sort of, it'll create jobs. It'll help accelerate the sort of solutions for companies. It will help make customers' life better. It will, make the property industry, which is a very, very important industry and a contributor to the economy, grow as well.
Thank you. Fadi, let me ask you a question. In your projects, are you using any new technologies or technologies in a different way? Maybe you had to pivot on how you use them.
I wouldn't say pivot. I would say, for instance, we launched an app for our tenants and residents, and we realized that the usage rate on the app is about 20%. And in the UAE in general, the average activation rate is about 40%. So we pivoted into a WhatsApp integration with our platforms and with Ijari and Mullak, so on, because customers have, find that a lot easier to use. And right now our usage rate is at about 98%. So that's the only main pivot that we did. But just on the topic of government support, Lynette, when I talk about the 30% of the customers that did not prefer to use digital means, I think the government can help by educating everybody, really, us included, on, for example, are electronic lease agreements accepted? Is an electronic receipt accepted? Sorry, not accepted. Does it hold the same value as a physical document? Because that's what we saw. We would sign lease agreements, over sign now, and we've been doing that for a couple of years, but we always have customers that come back and say, no, I want to see a blue pen because we are not sure if this stands in the court of law. So the government can help with education. And the second part is, Dubai and the UAE wants to be at the forefront of being smart and sustainable. Now they put regulations around, for example, using sustainable LED lights in place of the old lights in order for us to be environmentally sustainable. On the smart cities part, I would like to propose that the government has minimal IoT requirements connected in buildings, maybe related to utilities, maybe related to chillers, because that's where we have the most inefficiency. So maybe a little bit of push onto that will help the city become smarter as we move on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all the points that you just covered, especially on the government part. For me, what I've realized and the government has just been so proactive and amazing during this crisis. But one thing that I learned is that if the government enforces it, so meaning you have to do it digitally, you have to get a digital receipt. There is no more paper. I know we're going into this paperless, well, I don't know about now because of the crisis. I don't know if it's been pushed, but we had the paperless 2021 initiative from Smart Dubai. I know recently I had to do something because I wanted to be on the homeowners association of my community. I was forced to do it on the Dubai Rest app. And when I say forced, I really just wanted to send an email saying, okay, I want to be a part of it. Here are my documents, and that's it. But no, I had to go to the Dubai Rest app. I had to upload my documents. I had to wait for confirmation. And that was a way of changing something that takes an intensive time during email and it takes people on the other end to having something be digital. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. And actually all your points, especially the IoT points. Sergio, let me ask you, is Dubai Holdings using any new technologies, or did you have to kind of pivot your technologies during the pandemic?
No, it was not actually a pivot. It was, of course, it was an embrace in terms of increasing the video conferencing tools and all those VPNs, etc., which was more for the internal users than the external users. So the challenges there were more in terms of the adoption, which was lagging before and then skyrocketed. So we from IT had to support those people. It was as it was mentioning Mubarak before. So we IT have been used to that for forever, basically. But people coming from other departments, they were a bit reluctant. And this pandemic really helped. If there is a good thing of this pandemic, it was really pushed the digital transformation completely. So the infrastructure was there. We were already ready. It was just a matter of adoption, right? And now the adoption came, like a de facto thing. So that definitely helped also the upper management understand that actually it's definitely something that we can do almost everything digitally, and definitely there is no hindrance in delivering projects, and we can even change several of the physical activities towards digital ones. We also have implemented a chatbot based on WhatsApp, so very similar to what Fadi was mentioning, and that has been received very, very well. So it's not like that we are replacing things. We are simply adding stuff onto our Christmas tree, right? So the Christmas tree is already there, and we are adapting this Christmas tree with new gimmicks that are actually useful for the users. So if you still want to use the old style app, you can do that, but also you can interact through new channels. So that it's a matter just of availability of new technologies that are there, and so depending on which is the user, it's gonna be jumping on one or the other. But I would like to reiterate what was mentioned by Fadi before, that it's extremely important for the government to stress on the digital signature, because from the point of view of the legal framework, there is no discussion. It's there. I mean, it's not like we have to discuss about this. So it's there, and it has the same legal requirement. But then when you go in court and you speak to judges, then the situation is slightly different, because we have seen that there were cases of some disputes there, and so the judge usually appoints some legal consult. So it's not like a clear cut that the judge say, "Hey, you've signed a digital contract." That's it. That's the end of the story. You know, you can. I know that, if, for instance, Adobe, they offer legal services. This is actually what I've been told. They offer legal services for free in case there is a dispute on a contract that is being signed using their digital platform. Okay, so you are covered basically. Still, you know, there is this resistance towards that. So I think that a stronger push should be done in that respect. And then the other part would be when it comes to the digitalization of tokens. Then we simply need to finalize from the government perspective the legal framework. I know that they are working on that, so it's not like they are not doing that. It's just getting there, and it's important. And what I would like to see, it's not just that, but also the regulation of the secondary market, because that is what will really is going to give the impulse to the liquidity, which is the main reason for which you would step and invest in a token versus a REIT, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree with both of you about the government enforcement. And I know that they are working on things. And I'm a part of committees. I do hackathons with them and think tanks. So they're constantly trying to get feedback on how they can improve the processes. Now, I found it very interesting that both you, Sergio, and Fadi implemented something so easy as WhatsApp, and it really made a difference in your business. We did the same thing, and we were like struggling. Okay, how can we improve engagement? How can we improve more leads? And it was just WhatsApp on our B2B as well as our B2C app. So sometimes it's the easy things, the things that you don't think about, that do make a big difference. Okay, we have a few questions here, if I can just take some time. First question is for Fadi. Says, I'm curious about pain point that you mentioned. You said that there was a digital acceptance rate of 70-30%. As we cannot predict the future with pandemic, I was wondering, what will you do at Kaizen in the future?
I didn't get the question. What would we do to convert the 30%, or?
Yeah. Like, is there anything that you can do at Kaizen to try to convert that 30%? I mean, obviously we spoke about the government, but is there anything else?
It's improving. I would say, on a weekly basis, that 30 is going to 29, 28, etc. I don't think we'll ever achieve 100%, but it is improving. And I think the reason it's improving is word of mouth between our customers, make them trust the digital platforms, make them trust the digital ecosystem. So I don't think we can do a lot more from our side at the moment. I think some of these things just take time to be of acceptance among everyone.
Great. Same, so same kind of question. So obviously this resonated with people. Same question for you, Fadi, but their question is, would you try to focus on new generation of tenants that would naturally accept new technologies?
Yes, would love that actually. We're doing some work. I don't want to reveal too much, but we're doing some work on access controls in buildings as well, so that your entire journey from leasing, viewing the property, because we've got digital locks at the moment. So from viewing the property to leasing it, to managing your journey, to actually engaging with fellow tenants, is all digitized to the point that you don't even need an access control or a remote control, etc. So yes, we would love to, but Dubai is a very diversified city with a lot of ethnicities and also age groups. So we actually need to first nail and do well on serving everybody's basic needs, and then we can slowly become more advanced.
Yes, I agree. And actually, I just got a question on my WhatsApp for you, Fadi, in addition to what you just said right now. He's basically saying that right now, when you're in a community and even though you have that app, it's not streamlined. He's saying that it takes time. Like, for example, if you want a vendor to come in, like a cleaning company or a contractor, that they're out of the loop from the apps. How do you bring them in so that the tenant is not disturbed? Because obviously most of the time they come during the day and we're at work. So how do we streamline the vendors into the app?
So that's the part of access control project that we're talking about. The phase one of it today, actually, our service providers, that's the maintenance, security, and cleaners, they have a free app that they use on a daily basis. It's called Report app, and it's made so that when we receive requests from tenants, owners, or even when our team goes and inspects the property, all of these issues are raised onto that platform. Now, when a resident raises an issue on WhatsApp or on online, it instantly goes onto the maintenance company's site manager on site with an image of the issue or a video. If the tenant or landlord sent us an image or a video, and it tells them exactly where it is and their preferred time of visiting. We're enhancing more onto that, but at the moment we've finished phase one. It's been used for about a year. Phase two of that will be if the owner or tenant has the digital locks and they are okay with providing access to the maintenance company to visit the property without them being available. But that part is under piloting test at the moment. We're not there yet.
And what if this service provider is not on your list? So like, let's say, for example, I want someone to come to my house to do my hair.
Yeah.
They need permission, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What do you do in that situation?
That part is digitized already. It's it's been they actually go online, they apply for a work permit, and they get it instantly. And then the security in the property has a tab. Every security officer in our building has a tab that's provided by us, where they can see that the service provider has an approval already to access. And our approval rate has went down to about under 1 hour at the moment. Yes, so that would answer the question.
Okay. We have another question. It's from an anonymous person. So I'm going to ask Mubarak this one. What changes would you like to see in the near future in property management?
So, some very interesting points. I know we're coming to the end of the session, but, I would like to see changes that people, our panelists here, Fadi and Sergio, have mentioned. I'd like to see, more use of the whole end-to-end process digitally, from, the recognition of digital signatures, from the whole viewing of the property to the actual, whether it's AR, VR type viewing solutions, improvements to the whole sort of sales process or leasing process. I'd like to see all online and digitally recognized. You know, maybe even the funding of the properties, as Sergio mentioned. There's some great things that can be used there, and ultimately going down to the end customer. You know, I'd like to see them benefit, whether it's from you know, energy efficiency in their properties, or you know, smart homes in terms of smart home solutions, in terms of what will be implemented within properties, and also on the wider city they live in. I'd like to see the smart solutions in place there that, you know, can help things like have solutions like you know, smart waste solutions, autonomous vehicles, drones that can sort of modify, view an area, see if there's any issues, you know, map an area. I'd like to see it sort of go a lot deeper into the fabric of society. That's what I would really like. And I think, you know, PropTech companies, the new technology startup companies, are sort of making great inroads in this. A lot of really interesting, I find that in this time, a lot of very interesting robotics companies, furniture companies, AI companies, big data companies have sort of popped up and offered solutions that, you know, would have, you know, seemed not so practical a while ago, but now within the, you know, people staying at home and making use of their space in their houses, or you know, they've really sort of offered some very nice insights. And yeah, and then you get the personalization with the big data analytics AI, in terms of people getting a property, not just about where it is or what it has, or maybe a lot more richer kind of sense of where they want to live, what kind of lifestyle they want to have, a lot more deeper, so it touches the person and reaches out to them, rather than just a generic, here's a property in this place. A lot more personalization in terms of searching for property and looking for it. So the whole ecosystem, the whole chain, I'd like to see a lot of these ideas are there. I'd like to see them sort of make their way into society.
I know what you just said sounds probably to the average person like a vision in the sky, but in all reality, every single thing that you just said is absolutely doable, especially here in Dubai. I mean, Dubai is probably one of the most advanced technological cities in the world. They've accomplished so much. During the pandemic, we saw what the land department did with transfers. And I think, as you said, since the pandemic, we kind of a lot of things have been pushed forward when it comes to priority and importance. So I definitely do see this coming in the near future, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, and it's actually quite exciting.
Yes, it is.
So Sergio, I will ask you the same question from your perspective. Where do you see, oh, sorry, I lost where would you like to see it in the near future for property management?
I would like to answer more in general instead of property management, but in general, I would like to see more attention to the environment. It's something that I think that Dubai needs to catch up there. And so there is a huge opportunity. I understand that managing a city like this is not that easy, but some incentives in the sense of, you know, what was mentioned before by Fadi, like managing the air conditioning in an efficient way is not only a way to save money, but it's a way to save the environment, right? So I would like to see more actions that are oriented toward environmentally friendly activities. Could be done by that, could be done in terms of, you know, solar panels and those things, which is different than, okay, let's set up a solar panel field of 1 gazillion gigawatts. That is something that, of course, it's nice to have. But if we could also do the same thing at the level of the single, cannot be in an apartment, right? But it definitely can be in a villa or in a townhouse. So in those cases, if we could see a push in terms of decentralization of energy production and energy consumption, I think it would be beneficial both for the grid, for the pocket, and for the environment.
Absolutely. And we see it done in some other cities around the world. I believe the next session on this platform is talking about renewable energy. So it'd be very interesting to hear what they have to say and what's being done here in the UAE in regards to it. I do see, you know, some solar panel projects around, but it's not enough. I mean, we definitely need to be more proactive and take it more with an urgency when it comes to renewable energy. I think this is probably going to be our last question, and I will bring it to Fadi since you mentioned actually everyone mentioned big data, but he's asking how will big data reshape the property management industry?
I think big data will help understand the correlations between occupancy, between the type of the building, residential, commercial, between the type of equipment used, those that are connected to district cooling versus chillers versus split AC units, and tying all of that up and understanding what is the most efficient not design, but way of operating a building. I'll give an example. Today we have 2.4 million data points that we're trying to analyze and understand correlations from, but it's not enough. That data actually wasn't enough. We need at least, you would know better, I think 10, 12 million data points to get it. So I think if we had access to data of 1,000 buildings in Dubai, would be able to understand the correlation between occupancy and utility billing, and so on. Yeah, these are just some of the basic examples. It's, as you know, the moment you have access to organized, good quality data, the sky is the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that we focused on heavily, like I mentioned earlier during when the crisis started. Our webinars were heavy database. And this is the first time that we went out to our clients, to the real estate brokers and developers with so much data. And in the beginning, they were not used to it. And I've been in the data business here for now 6 years. When it comes to PropTech. And what we learned very quickly after, I would say, the first 2 webinars is that people started to catch on and understand how they can use the data. So for example, one thing that was extremely valuable to our clients was, what are people searching for today? Very simple. Where are the leads going to? What kind of properties are they going to? And what we found is that everyone started looking for open space, backyards, pools, and villas. So we had a huge shift of searches going from apartments, which was always predominant, to villa townhouse literally overnight. And this taught our clients who were focusing on apartments to start focusing on villa townhouses. And now today, as we know, we've had a 500% increase in villa townhouse transactions, sales transactions since May. So it is the dominant asset class currently in the market. And it's something as simple as just looking at one data point to kind of get to where the answers that you're looking for. And that's just the beginning. And like you said, Fadi, once we have millions of data points for buildings across the city, and this is something else that the government can help us with. And this is something that the government helps us with at Property Finder when it comes to sales transaction data. If the more data that we have, the more we can help the community, the more that we can help with urban planning, with sustainability, and just making Dubai the most attractive city for foreign direct investment. And I think we're up. Mega, do I have more time? It's 2:05, I think that's when it ends.
Yeah, we are almost done.
About a minute. Can I ask another question or are we good?
Yeah, sure. You can go for the one.
Okay, so on the topic of big data, which makes me very excited because I love to talk about data. Sergio, tell me, how do you use your data at Dubai Holding?
So for instance, we are exploring the possibility of generating the rosters for the blue collars for Ejada, one of our companies. So we're talking about the security people, etc. In a using AI. Okay, so as you know, having a data background, solving that problem when we are talking about dozens of thousands of employees, generating a roster is a problem that is, as we say, NP complete. Okay, so it's a problem that you cannot explore all the possibilities and all the permutation and combinations. It's simply undoable in a human life. Okay, even with the most powerful machine. So what we need is we approach the thing using genetic algorithms, and so we are generating now, trying to generate rosters using genetic algorithms to optimize efficiency and also make the life of people better, because it's better if a person is utilized in the most efficient way, utilized in the sense of not being bounced back and forth between several buildings, but used in the most efficient way. It's also better for the employer, the employee himself. So this is something that we are doing. And then, of course, as you can imagine, we are doing some lead scoring analysis. So we are able to cater for the customers that we classify as more hot, let's say, first, so they would receive a call earlier, versus clients that we would classify not that hot, based on several factors, among which you might not tell, but the time of the day when you submit the lead, that is statistically significant. Okay, depending if it's evening, morning, etc., we can detect if you are actually more interested, or basically you are surfing the net and then you have some spare time and you're clicking yes, I'm interested. So this is something that we are doing. It's proving very, very valuable.
Thank you, Sergio. Actually, I need to wrap this up. So I would like to thank all the panel members, Sergio, Mubarak, and Fadi. Thank you so much for your time today. It was extremely insightful. I hope we can continue this conversation, especially with government, because that's where we can really make a difference. Thank you, everybody, for watching us. I hope that this was very insightful for you, and see you soon.
Thank you.